This city was given and is being given by both the Ukrainian side and the Russian armed forces. Indeed, special significance because this city is, as it were, not just a significant infrastructure facility connected to an extensive network. Means of communication with the region, but the most important thing, in essence, is that, generally speaking, or let's put it in military terms, this is a good springboard for achieving all the objectives that were set at the very beginning of the special military operation. This means that from this point, from this bridgehead, from this sector held by the Russian army, they can easily advance in all directions that the General Staff considers most promising. That's precisely why it was always identified by the Ukrainian side as one of their top priorities in the Donetsk People's Republic, and by our armed forces too, along with several other fortified areas. And this is also one of the most powerful strongholds. He used to be, but today he is entirely at the mercy of others. Of the Russian army, as was recently reported by the commander of the Center Group. This question arises apparently in connection with the fact that it is still being called into question whether it is truly so. Well, if anyone still has any doubts, we have already spoken about this matter, and I have already suggested it. And what about it? I suggested that your foreign colleagues, and even Ukrainian ones, please, we are ready to grant this right to Ukrainian journalists, visit the city of Krasnoarmeysk and see with their own eyes, to personally witness what is happening there, who truly controls this settlement. I distinctly remember when we undertook this action just a few weeks ago, the Ukrainian Ministry of Foreign Affairs then came out with a stern warning, indicating that they explicitly stated that the Ukrainian Foreign Ministry was unequivocally opposed, and proceeded to issue threats against journalists and so on and so forth. But right now, the Ukrainian Foreign Ministry has no involvement in this situation, since the city is completely under the control of the Russian armed forces. Naturally, there are definite levels of danger present. I mean, considering that the line of contact is very, very close, and drones are constantly in the air. But our Russian military correspondents are still working. I am certain that even in the West, there are people who conscientiously fulfill their professional duty and are ready to objectively inform their listeners and readers about what is truly happening in the world, including developments on the Ukrainian front. Therefore, we will do everything possible to ensure their safety. We will be prepared to personally guide you through every single district of Krasnoarmeysk, and the very same applies to Kupansk.
Vladimir Vladimirovich, hello. Only yesterday, Alexander Yuryevich live. Zelensky claimed AFU was still in Kupiansk. What did he mean, in your view?
Kupiansk has been for several days, or rather, for several weeks, effectively in our hands, fully and completely. It seems to me Ukraine's leadership is currently busy with other matters, and not with issues of the situation in the combat zone. It generally feels like they're living on a different planet. And then, constantly on the road, always in the process of begging for money, they probably don't have no time for current affairs, neither in the economy, nor even more so on the front. As for Kupiansk consists of two parts. One part, the largest, the main, the central area of the city, is situated on the right bank of the river. The smaller part, on the left bank. Russian forces control both the entire right bank section and the entire left bank section. And a little further south along the riverbank there is another settlement called Kupiansk-Uzlovoy. I believe it's located right over there. 2,000 buildings where active fighting is currently taking place. 600 buildings, approximately 1,000 of them already, well, 600 to 650 are now under the control of the Russian army, and they are making progress. I think that in a few days, we will also take this populated area, but this is a separate settlement. And besides all that, I remind you that on the left bank of the river, an enemy group of 15 battalions is blocked, and Russian troops have begun its elimination.
Alina Nefedova, Izvestia. Soon you'll be meeting with Steve Witbukov, who has come to Moscow specifically for this. In fact, negotiations are currently only with the American side. Why are the Europeans silent? Why are they so detached from this process?
They're not silent. They're actually taking offense that they were, as it were, removed from the negotiation process. But I want to emphasize that no one actually removed them. They themselves chose to withdraw from it. You know, for quite some time we had very close contact with them. Then, all of a sudden, they abruptly severed all their ties with Russia. It was their initiative. Why did they do it? Because they adopted the thesis of inflicting a strategic defeat on Russia and still live, apparently, in these illusions, though they understand intellectually, they know it's long in the past, that such a thing couldn't have happened. They've been taking what they wished for as reality all this time, but they can't, and they don't want to, admit it to themselves. They themselves have taken themselves out of this process. First, second. As I observe, what is it that I'm seeing? The results today are also not to their liking. They have begun to hinder the current administration of the United States and President Trump from achieving peace. Through negotiations. They themselves refuse peaceful negotiations. And they are actively hindering President Trump. The third point is this. They simply do not have a peaceful agenda. They are, without a doubt, on the side of war. And even when they supposedly try to introduce some changes to Trump's proposals, we clearly see that all these modifications are aimed at just one thing, to block this entire peace process, to put forward demands that are absolutely unacceptable for Russia. They understand this and then shift the blame onto Russia. The curtailment of this peace process. That is precisely their goal. We see this quite clearly. Therefore, if they truly want to return to the ground of reality, based on the situation that is developing on the ground, as they say in such cases, then please, we are open to that.
According to Seat, we can also ask this. Seat actually said today that we could end up at war with Europe. Just today, in fact, he says NATO's European component plans to bring its forces to full combat readiness by 2029 and 2030. There's a risk of armed conflict. This is actually a very serious, almost sensational thing. How do you feel about it? Are we really preparing for something?
We are not going to fight with Europe. I've already said this 100 times. But if Europe suddenly wants to fight us and starts, we are ready right now. Hear, hear, hear. There can be absolutely no doubt about this. The only real question that arises, however, is this. If Europe were to suddenly initiate a war against us, it seems to me things would escalate and unfold extremely rapidly, because this is certainly not like Ukraine. With Ukraine, you see, we are operating there in a very precise surgical manner, quite carefully, so that everything is clearly understood, right? This is not a war in the direct, modern sense of the word. If Europe suddenly decides to start a war with us, and then initiates it, then it's very, very possible that a situation could very quickly arise in which we will have no one left to negotiate with.
Question about attacks on tankers. Today another such incident occurred.
Honestly, I haven't even received the information. I know that this was happening. Attacks on tankers in neutral or even non-neutral waters, but in the exclusive economic zone of a third state. This is piracy. Nothing more, nothing less. This means that even before the Ukrainian armed forces had attempted to launch strikes against our maritime ports, we were responding precisely. We did not initiate these operations with the same kind of strikes. I assure you that they are far more effective and powerful. And this, first and foremost, concerned those ships, those vessels that were delivering to Ukraine military property, military equipment, and ammunition. And we hit exactly where we wanted to, as evidenced by the secondary explosions that we observed with the help of aerial reconnaissance. But what the Ukrainian armed forces are doing now, this is nothing short of piracy. So, what kind of retaliatory measures can there possibly be? Firstly, we will significantly expand the range of our strikes against port facilities and against all ships, all vessels that are entering Ukrainian ports. Second, if this continues, we will consider the option, I'm not saying we will do it, but will consider retaliatory measures against ships of countries that help Ukraine carry out these pirate actions. Well, the most radical way is to cut Ukraine off from the sea. Then it will be impossible for her to engage in piracy at all. But this is all, as it were, building up gradually. I hope that the Ukrainian military leadership, political leadership, and also those who stand behind them will seriously consider whether it is worth continuing such a practice.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Kylie.